It's time for Justice for All, Behind the Badge video, streamed live from Team Toyota Route 1 in Langhorne with your host, Tom Mellon, featuring Bucks County District Attorney Matt Weintraub and Bucks County Sheriff Fred Herron. Here's your host from Team Toyota, Tom Mellon.
Hey, good morning, and thanks for joining us. This wonderful show that we do once a month. I'm here with our first at Bucks County, our first Assistant District Attorney, Jennifer Schorn. Jennifer, thanks for joining us as always.
Thank you for having me.
Do we have a great show today?
I hope so.
Yeah, rather sensitive, but
yeah,
very important.
It is.
For especially this time of year. For some reason, it's suitable to be sharing these. These notable points of interest.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
yes.
no doubt about it. But we want to thank Paul Muller, as always, for being the sponsor. I've been doing these shows now for 12 of the 14 years that I've been here at Team Toyota.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, retired Philadelphia police officer. I run a special program here at Team Toyota. It's rather unique, Jennifer, as you know. Mm-hmm. We'll talk a little bit about the show we did, or the meeting that we had yesterday at Spring Mill Country Club. And I was very, very comfortable in that arena because my family was there.
Yeah, that's right.
It wasn't a friendship, it was family. As I mentioned that.
Right.
But, we want to thank Paul. We were just talking to him. He just popped in. He has 3 dealerships, so he keeps very busy and very charitable. And he understands the importance for these types of shows so that we can convey all important information from our special departments in Bucks County, such as the Bucks County District Attorney's Office, namely for today. And it's fantastic. And the purpose and the missions for these shows is to increase the awareness to you, our listeners, about the incredibly effective professionals who are in our county's district attorney's office. They tirelessly pursue prosecutorial success to ensure a more safe environment for you, our citizens and visitors in Bucks County. They keep criminals off the streets and place them where they belong, in jail.
That's right.
And that's what's important. And there's also a lot of special units in the district attorney's office that Jennifer will articulate and explain to you the purpose of these units. Once again, they're captions of the program that I like to label as "Did You Know?" because there's a lot of things that our listeners don't know about what goes behind all the rudiments and the special investigations and the professional work and skills that you provide and your department as well. So yesterday, great meeting.
It was a great meeting. It's such a privilege to be a part of the Chiefs Association.
It really is. To
sit in a room, like you said, with these remarkable people. And as you mentioned, your family. I love, as district attorney, soon to be, I should say, appointed district attorney, but as first assistant, to be part of that association with the chiefs of the 39 police departments in Bucks County. It's a privilege. It
really is. I made sure with the program that now Paul Muller is doing, especially the way the climate is and the existence with the car industry today, that there's just no cars that are in stock or in inventory. We're ordering cars and vehicles for people. And many dealerships are charging $10,000 to $15,000 over the MSRP. Paul here at Team Toyota, and especially with our program here for all of our police and our fire and our military, he's never wavered over the MSRP, although he could have. And now we have a special program, as I indicated yesterday. If we have any of our police out there or our firefighters listening, it's $500 under the MSRP and great discounts on all of the warranties. You have to ask for me because, I'm running the program. And I got a lot of letters out yesterday because all the chiefs grabbed the letters that I gave specially for all of our police officers and their family members as well. That's
wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful program.
It is a great program. The Heroes program at Team Toyota. Very unique. Let's talk a little bit about, what this title or what this show's all about. The sensitivity of the issue of child predators and how careful we must be, especially for the listeners today, Especially, there's some friends of mine that listen on a regular basis, like Terry and Frank in Levittown. They have a family. Listen up. It's going to be another great show. But let's start with, this issue with the child predator program, or the predators that are out there, and Megan's Law.
I will, yeah. It's a heavy topic, as you know. And you mentioned Bucks County is a safe community, and you're absolutely right. I mean, we are so fortunate. I mean, we have the best district attorney, Matt Weintraub, soon to be judge of the Court of Common Pleas. And we have wonderful, wonderful men and women in law enforcement who investigate crimes and really put a lot into the investigations so that we as prosecutors have the benefit of securing a conviction. And so with regards to child predators, they're very challenging. They're not the type of crimes that happen with eyewitnesses, with digital evidence capturing the crimes, which is so common today. Many crimes are captured, thankfully. Technology and advancement, we have license plate readers. We have surveillance from almost every intersection in our community. But these are crimes that happen to the most vulnerable among us, our children, and sometimes our elder adults, and they happen behind closed doors. So they present a unique challenge for prosecution purposes, and the predators play on that. They know that. So they are... I've never seen criminals put so much effort into carrying out crimes like I do with sexual predators.
My God.
Yeah, it's a lot of crimes, are triggered by desperation or anger, or these are calculated and they plan and they groom. And I think there's a big misnomer. They don't just groom the children. The first line of attack is grooming the families. And so... build a trust with them. Yes, exactly. That's how else do you ingratiate yourself into a family? You can't just walk up and, invite a kid to come to your home or come to your place of work without knowing the family. So these predators, they assess the situation. They might see a family that's struggling. They may see a family that's just, good people who are very trusting and let their guard down. And so slowly but surely, they gain the trust, and then they assess, what victims within a family, even certain children are more predisposed, and that's not attributing fault to the children, but if a child's more reserved or introverted, that's going to be their mark, and they're going to pursue them. We see oftentimes, it could be contractors who obviously have to come into your home. It could be, as we all hear in the news, often sometimes teachers, sometimes coaches. It's, you have to have your guard up because predators are in every community. And I don't mean to be an alarmist. Thankfully, they're a small percentage, but you have to take measures to be aware. And that's what I hope to be able to provide some insight
about today. Yeah, and obviously the alarm is there, but let's make it let's change that to awareness. From being an alarmist to being aware. I mean, forget about the alarms, or and then some people may think, am I going to offend somebody if I accuse?
Right.
That's another sensitive area.
You're so right. I mean, obviously, you don't want to make unfounded accusations, but you want to be alert and you want to be aware. And if you have concerns and you're not sure if they're founded, it's okay. Make the report. Let the professionals, the men and women in law enforcement, and in conjunction with the district attorney's office, do their job. So if you see something that doesn't seem right, but you don't want to accuse, first of all, it's not safe to accuse somebody.
Right. Sure.
But share the information. That intelligence, that information to law enforcement is critical.
My God, it could save a lot of these assaults that are occurring.
Absolutely.
On our children, because it never leaves them. I mean, it's mental anguish as they develop and mature over the years when something like this occurs to them.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah. I mean, it's like a lifelong, lasting negative effect on victims of child sexual abuse.
God, and it's so prevalent. As I did some research. The thousands that are living in all of our communities. Yeah. And let's talk about the tiers and the registrants, how they are obligated under penalty of law and punishment too, going back to jail,
Yes.
if in the event they don't register.
There's 3 tiers of Megan's Law registrants, and that's for convicted sex offenders. That's in
Okay.
Pennsylvania. Obviously, it varies from state to state.
Right.
Although there is reciprocity. So if you're a sexual offender in New Jersey and required to register, and then you'd move to Pennsylvania, you would be required.
Okay.
But there are 3 tiers, and naturally the tiers are based on what crimes you stand convicted of. There's like one caveat. You could be convicted of a lower level sexual offense, but if the experts from the Megan's Law Board, which is now called Schorn, find that you are a sexually violent predator, and there's a hearing and we prove that, the judge could order the highest tier, which is much more aggressive, and it's a lifetime registry. So I will say it's a safety measure, but when we have I will say this, some of our worst sexual offenders that we've prosecuted in this county, and which are some of the worst in the state, oftentimes they have no prior conviction. And they have multiple victims, and their crimes span the course of years. So it's a bit of a, more often than not, sexual offenders are committing the crimes, they just haven't been convicted of them.
They haven't been convicted of it.
Yeah, so, I mean, the Megan's Law is an important post-sentence feature to alert the community of sexual offenders living in their community, but it is not, doesn't provide assurance that there aren't others out there who are a threat to their children.
Some of the characteristics that they possess on the outside, they're insulated, but on the outside, they may appear to be the average Joe or the average person just walking down the street that you're friendly with, Uncle Bill, Uncle Joe, whoever it may be, or a neighbor. And when the trust begins with the families of certain individuals and there's no awareness of it, that's what makes it very, very complicated, especially for our investigators.
Yeah.
And then to get to a prosecutorial level as well.
You're so right. I can reflect back to a couple cases that are just, they're ones that are unimaginable. And probably one of the worst sex offenders in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania was a guy from Bucks County, Walter Meyerle.
Okay.
And he was a handsome guy. He was a tattoo artist, but he was also very talented and would come into homes and paint murals. And as a mother, I remember, it was not uncommon. A lot of people, when they were expecting, would want their nursery painted with a mural.
Of course.
And so this individual would identify families based on either, getting into the home and seeing a home where there's children and doing work in the home. And, he was a peeping Tom. He was spying on little girls in the bath, in the shower. But then, when he would commit the physical sexual crimes on children, he would get close to families who were struggling. Some of the families, one in particular, just a lovely, lovely single mom who lost her home in a fire. And this particular individual, this predator, Walter Meyerle, he took care of a building that was broken up into a number of different apartments in Bristol Borough. And so he would offer, as an individual who had access, would offer respite for, you need a place to stay until you can find another home. Come on, you can stay in this apartment. But the apartment's too small. The kids can stay in mine because I have the bigger apartment, and you could stay across the hall. And lo and behold, he started to, on a regular basis, sexually abuse this woman's little girl for years.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
And that no one knows, no one's aware.
No one knows.
And the child is not aware of anything that's not normal.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. And I know we're about ready to break in a moment.
Yeah, we're going to take a break, but.
And I'd like to touch on that when we come back,
yes.
Because that's what these predators know, and it's their insurance policy. The child's oftentimes unaware, and they blur the lines. And I'll get into the grooming and,
yes.
as mentioned, the insurance policy to hope that they reduce the likelihood of a report being made.
Sure. You're listening to Jennifer Schorn, the 1st District Assistant District Attorney here in Bucks County. A wonderful program here. The topic might be a little distasteful, but it's happening in all of our communities, in Bucks County and the surrounding contiguous counties as well. I'm Tom Mellon on behalf of Justice for All. Please don't go anywhere. We have a lot more to share with you. Sensitive information, but critical information. to keep you and your children safe, especially around this time of year. Don't go anywhere. We'll return after a few words from our sponsors.
Hi, Paul Mellon from Team Toyota. With the season finally changing, things in the car market are pretty much the same. You can wait for months to find a new car, or don't wait at all. With over 100 certified Toyotas in stock with low mileage and great warranties, you can drive one home today. Plus, get free maintenance and roadside assistance for 1 year. Or choose a budget-friendly used car that meets your financial and lifestyle needs. So start the season in your new used car at Team Toyota. Just visit teamtoyota.net.
WBCB is now on your FM dial at 107.3. Serving Bucks, Burlington, and Mercer counties since 1958, you can now listen to all of your BCB favorites crystal clear on 107.3 FM. A new age for WBCB on a new frequency, 107.3.
Hi, this is Mayor Jeff Martin of Hamilton Township, inviting you to tune in to our monthly radio show, This Month in Hamilton. Video stream live the fourth Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m. at WBCB1490.com. We will be featuring various guests from Hamilton Township to keep you up to date on what's going on in Hamilton.
Hi, Paul Mellon from Team Toyota. With the season finally changing, things in the car market are pretty much the same. You can wait for months to find a new car, or don't wait at all. With over 100 certified Toyotas in stock with low mileage and great warranties, you can drive one home today. Plus, get free maintenance and roadside assistance for 1 year. Or choose a budget-friendly used car that meets your financial and lifestyle needs. So start the season in your new used car at Team Toyota. Just visit teamtoyota.net.
Welcome back to Justice for All. We're here at the beautiful showroom here in Langhorne, right on Business Route 1, 746 East Lincoln Highway, with Jennifer, as I just indicated, our first Assistant District Attorney in Bucks County. I want to shout out again from yesterday to Mike Cummings, the chair for the Police Chiefs Association in Bucks County, Danny Friel, who does a fantastic job
He does.
as president. My good friend, our good friend Joe Bartarilla,
Yes.
who's the first vice president,
Yes.
and on and on. I mean, I met so many of my family and friends there. It's encouraging to see how they get together and unite. And it's not just police work, but the charitable efforts and the work and the services they provide in tandem with the communities.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, I love it. You see guest speakers that, the whole spectrum. You had people promoting
Yes.
community work for children who are in need.
Right.
And you have sometimes individuals from companies that are promoting technology that helps protect the police and
Yes.
protect the community. It's a really cool place to be. And, our monthly meetings, I learn a lot. And
They're
I'm with a
great.
great group of people.
Yeah, I'll be back. I know that. I know the summer there's a little bit of a vacation period where they don't get together, but September will be here before we know it.
Right.
And
Right.
it's just a great group of professionals that keep your communities safe on a regular basis. And there's a lot of reasons why it's a safe community. It's a lot of hard work.
A lot of hard work.
A lot of hard work.
And for a county that has 39 police departments, the fact that they meet and try to be like-minded on the big picture issues and
Right.
policies is really impressive.
Yes, it is.
It really is, and that makes a difference.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. And for all of my friends out there, for all the chiefs yesterday, as they were exiting the Spring Mill Valley Country Club, I ask you again, those envelopes that I distributed to you, please get them out to all of your officers, supervisors, and it's good for all their family members as well. Because when they open up that envelope, I didn't seal them, by the way. I think I'd be sick today if I had to seal all those envelopes.
Right.
But yes, when you read that envelope, you'll see the importance of it and the benefits. Everyone needs a vehicle. Come up and support the Heroes program. It's going to save you money. You'll come in and see me, Tom Mellon, and I'll talk to you more about that. But we want to get right back again to the sensitivity and the important messages that we want to deliver and information to our listeners. Let's talk a little bit more about this predator.
Yeah.
That's a bad one, boy. This one.
Oh, he was honestly the worst, I think, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Wow.
I honestly, and that is not an exaggeration, because I will ultimately reference the sentence he got when he was convicted of his crimes. But just to touch on what we were speaking of before the break, when I was a child, I remember it vividly. There was a program where you would put like a red hand, neighbors would put a picture of a red hand in the window, and that meant that was a safe home if something happens to you, if some strangers coming, approaching you, walking home from the bus stop, you could come into this home.
I never heard of this.
Oh, my gosh. You'll
Wow.
have to Google it. People in Bucks County will probably remember it. Now looking back, the stranger danger and the red hand is the worst thing.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's literally giving predators an opportunity to say, I'm a safe home, come on in. And guess what? Stranger danger, yes, of course you have to be cautious with strangers, but I can count on one hand the number of times a true stranger attack of a child has occurred in our community. It is very rare, thank God.
Thank God is right.
Thank God. But the reason being is the predators are the individuals who get close because, as mentioned, they groom the families, they make sure the family's guard is down, they gain the trust, and if you go up and grab a child, it's going to be very clear this is a bad person doing a bad thing.
Absolutely.
But if you shower this child with attention, especially if the family's struggling, maybe they're impoverished, and suddenly this neighbor is showering you with gifts and toys, and
oh boy,
has a monster truck and has a cool lizard and takes you out on these cool adventures, dirt bikes and whatnot. Suddenly, this is a good guy, and then slowly but surely, and if he's giving you affectionate touches that are not sexual in nature, those are harmless. These are good touches. And then slowly but surely that gets eroded. And then a child, especially the younger children, the lines are so blurred that suddenly when they do feel that something is happening that's unusual, they start to doubt themselves and say, well, no, he's a good guy. He's the one that's been providing me, fun excursions and taking me out to eat and taking me away from the day-to-day that's tough.
Sure.
And then those lines are so blurred that the child is kind of turned upside down, and it's the insurance policy that reduces the likelihood of a report. And so this particular sex offender did just that. Ultimately, Tom, we identified 15 child victims.
Wow.
Male and female.
This one
creep over the course of about a little more than a decade. Boys and girls.
Oh.
The youngest being 4 years old.
Oh, my God.
And one family, as mentioned, had a house fire. Another family, this was heartbreaking. 4 siblings, boys and girls. The 3 were victimized. The mother, the father wasn't in the picture. The matriarch of the family, who was the grandmother, passed away. The mother was diagnosed with cancer. So as you can imagine, this family was struggling. So naturally, he takes them into his home, under his wing, every single day, trying to help the family. And as mentioned, he had a monster truck. He had a lizard. He had every toy, cool thing a boy could imagine. But then he was sweet and affectionate with his female victims, his little girl victims. And slowly but surely, he started victimizing each child except for the youngest in that family. And he would do it in a way where the others didn't know. And again, another aspect in the hope that they don't report, because then obviously if one disclosed to a sibling and each knew, they might have the strength in numbers to report. So that was just 2 of the families he victimized in one jurisdiction. But then he victimized others in the previous jurisdiction he lived, and victimized others in another jurisdiction that he lived, all in Bucks County though. And what's remarkable about this case, do you want to know how it came to light?
Oh, I'm all ears with this here, yeah.
So, first of all, it was the best detectives I could ask for on a case. A woman comes in, an aunt of her niece, a 15-year-old niece, who was, a very protective young aunt.
Sure.
And she knew her niece's mother had some issues and whatnot, so she took kind of the maternal role. she discovered that her niece had a tattoo near her pelvic region. And she said, "Where did you get this?" And then ultimately the niece confided in her that this Walter Meyerle, who was a family friend of the mother and was living many years ago when this child was young, was living in their home because he was friends with the mother and her then husband. They reconnected, and when they reconnected, he said, "I'll give you a tattoo," and gave it, on her pelvic region. So this aunt came to report it, was turned away at one jurisdiction because, the tattoo was done in another, and was turned away at another. Ultimately came to Bristol Township Police, and an officer had the kind of sixth sense, like, wait, this is, tattooing a minor is a crime. It's a low-level misdemeanor crime, but given what this aunt is saying, that this guy was in this girl's life when she was a small child, and given kind of some weird flags, I might want to talk to a detective about this.
Yeah, let's investigate her.
Yeah, and so he goes to a detective, one of the best, Greg Beidler, who used to be with Bristol Township, now works for the County of Bucks as with the District Attorney's Office, and the aunt just spells everything out, that, this child, I won't mention any of the children's names, but, she lived with Uncle Walt when she was little, and the child slowly confided to the aunt that he used to play some games, and by the titles of the games it indicated some weird sexual things. And so the aunt said, between the tattoo at 15 and now the child is confiding that there were these weird games that he played, I'm concerned that more happened. And lo and behold, after the interview of this child, she disclosed that she was in fact a victim of his when she was a small child, and that he reconnected through social media when she was a teenager. After, he kind of, mom moved out,
Sure.
They lost touch, he reconnected through social media, and hence then the tattoo on in her pelvic region.
Yeah.
Ultimately, she then identified another friend of hers who's been spending a lot of time with this individual, and that child was also a victim. And not only was that child a victim, but so this classmate of this first 15-year-old, he would solicit her to do sexual things to her own little sister and send him images. And so this detective knew, wait, there is so much more to this. This man has only been, operating in this jurisdiction for a period of time, but there's gaps of years in between. I'm going to do old school police work, and I'm going to contact every jurisdiction where he lived to see if anybody else had complaints about this guy.
Scratching several surfaces here that you can get underneath and find out how bad he really is.
Yes, because obviously that's, as mentioned, these crimes don't happen with eyewitnesses.
No.
They're not captured on video surveillance. So we've made some tremendous advancements in how we interview children, non-leading ways to get disclosures, but you don't often get a disclosure. And so you had a hypervigilant aunt who was more like a mother figure, and a fantastic detective, and lo and behold, he called neighboring Bensalem. And you had another excellent detective who I believe you've spoken to before, Detective Chris McMullen, who's now with the Sheriff's Department with Fred Herron.
Absolutely.
And he had an open investigation into the same man with a number of child victims, and he was actively pursuing. So they joined forces, and then combined efforts revealed ultimately 15 victims, as mentioned, as young as 4, some no longer living in the area, one as far south as Florida. They traveled all over, got disclosure after disclosure. And what was unique, Tom, is this group of victims didn't know this group of victims who didn't know this group of victims. So what does that tell you as someone in law enforcement about the credibility of the disclosures? Clearly. These
absolutely.
People, they're not in cahoots.
No, they're not.
How could they know? And they describe such eerily similar mechanisms of abuse.
And they all sized up and identical to one another.
Identical, yet we were able, and the beauty, and then these two remarkable detectives joined forces with then County Detective with the District Attorney's Office, Tim Perkins, who was a former Bristol Township detective, and together they worked this case. And I can't even tell you the mountain of evidence and the unique investigative things that were done to gather corroboration, which I won't speak in great detail, but they were able to identify the victims, but also identify how strong the case was based on, when interviewing this victim, not disclosing anything about what other victims said, to maintain the integrity of the disclosure.
I see.
And it was remarkable.
The work, we can go behind the scene. We, meaning our investigators, can go behind the scenes as long as there's enough there to scratch.
Yep.
And dig underneath the surface. We're going to take another quick break. You're listening to Jennifer Schorn, our first assistant district attorney, with some incredible stories that are actualities that are occurring today, unfortunately, and we have to try and find the preventative measures to stop these culprits that are out there. And education is where it begins. Educating you, our listeners, so that you can protect, our children, our youth, as much as possible. And we're going to talk about those things as well. Don't go anywhere. We'll return after a few more words from our sponsors.
Hi, Paul Mellon from Team Toyota. With the season finally changing, things in the car market are pretty much the same. You can wait for months to find a new car, or don't wait at all. With over 100 certified Toyotas in stock with low mileage and great warranties, you can drive one home today. Plus, get free maintenance and roadside assistance for 1 year. Or choose a budget-friendly used car that meets your financial and lifestyle needs. So start the season in your new used car at Team Toyota. Just visit teamtoyota.net.
Are you curious what old antiques, collectibles, or household contents are worth? Listen Friday mornings for What's It Worth with Mike the Appraiser, right here on 1490 WBCB.
Are you a parrot head? Not that kind. That's more like it. If you're this kind of parrot head, don't forget to check out the Denny-O Polka Show every Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon right here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com.
Opinions matter, and so does yours. Hi, I'm Joe Fabrizi, inviting you to join us every Monday at 1 p.m. for Opinions Matter, right here on 1490 AM WBCB. Opinions Matter is now live streamed at WBCB1490.com. We want to hear from you, because your opinion does matter.
Hi, Paul Mellon from Team Toyota. With the season finally changing, things in the car market are pretty much the same. You can wait for months to find a new car, or don't wait at all. With over 100 certified Toyotas in stock with low mileage and great warranties, you can drive one home today. Plus, get free maintenance and roadside assistance for 1 year. Or choose a budget-friendly used car that meets your financial and lifestyle needs. So start the season in your new used car at Team Toyota. Just visit teamtoyota.net.
You're back. We are back. You are back as well, I hope, listening in. Frank and Terry, I know that you're out there listening, and my wife, Jerry, who listens on a lot of these shows. Joe Kelly, who has a show of his own.
One of the best.
I hope, Joe, you're listening in. Just remarkable to be able to share this important information so that maybe we can prevent, if we prevent one incident or occurrence, to save the welfare of one child, but we want to do it, much more than just one person. But let's return back to
so this predator, after disclosures were made, and we also had to do precautionary interviews because we learned during the investigation that as we were identifying past victims, he was still actively trying to engage in connections with single mothers with small children, and so we had to make a tough decision. Once we learned that, we knew we have to make an arrest. This guy is actively pursuing. He was unrelenting in his pursuit of children.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, one of our victims told us something. Actually, several of our victims told us something interesting, and perhaps it's a little bit too detailed for the show. So I'll talk in general terms.
Okay.
But he had a very unique $ tattooed on a part of his body that there is no way a child would know about unless that child saw that part. And so what is interesting is those children that disclose that, again, independent of one another, that was a great piece of evidence that we needed. We executed a search warrant of his body to identify that, because again, how would this neighbor know about this?
No way.
And in no way you could see it accidentally under any set of circumstances. And lo and behold, these detectives, one drew the short straw and had to do a search warrant of his body and identify that $sign tattoo on a private part of his body, on this predator's body, and it corroborated those victims. Interestingly enough, this predator had children of his own.
Oh, my God.
And years after victimizing some of the kids, and he named his children after his victims.
Oh, my God. This is how bad this guy is.
This is how bad this guy is.
How sick.
Yeah. So once once an arrest was made, never forget it, St. Patty's Day, 2012.
Okay.
We made the arrest because we had concerns that he was actively pursuing other victims, and we had to make sure, they were safe. And so while he was incarcerated, awaiting prosecution, and this was always going to be a trial, and all 15 victims, there was one that was very hesitant, one of the male victims, which is not at all uncommon, but we were ready. We were ready to prosecute with all 15 victims. And we knew there were more, Tom. You and I talked in the break about that.
Of course.
Not everybody's ready to disclose.
No, they're not.
And even when confronted with it, and I should say, you can't even imagine some of these, most of them were now young adults, and the weight of their knowledge that victims were victimized after they were, and that they felt so guilty that they didn't disclose. But of course, they didn't, because that's what the predators bank on, and that's what they do to kind of mix them up and turn them around. And he also used some really aggressive tactics to threaten the ones that he feared would disclose, to threaten to harm their family. So again, more insurance. But anyway, he was he was arrested and incarcerated. And, call this a gift, because, the case was still going to be a tough case to prosecute. He actually planned a pretty elaborate plot to escape the correctional facility.
Really?
And we were able to intercept that plot. And we had overwhelming evidence of that. And, so what we call that. We call that consciousness of guilt.
Absolutely.
If you're going to such lengths to escape, and it involved him getting injured, and then he assessed the security at Doylestown Hospital and was going to escape, and he had someone on the outside. Turns out that someone on the outside that he thought was a good friend was a father of a new baby.
Beautiful.
And once he learned the scope, and of course Walter Meyerle was maintaining his innocence to this guy, but once he learned of the scope of the victimization and realized this isn't just fabricated evidence, this guy is a predator.
Right.
He reached out to us and said, he's got a pretty elaborate plot. He's trying to use me, and he wants to escape the prison. And I got to tell you, Tom, it was eye-opening. I mean, he did his homework. He did his homework. So in addition to the 15 victims, we were able to charge him for the escape plot. We were also ultimately able to, and this was, call it a hand of God, phenomenal investigators, but we couldn't get into his iPhone. When he was arrested, he had the most current iPhone. And, I hate to say it, but Apple's always one step ahead with technology.
Sure.
And so that phone, they were trying to crack the code, and I kid you not, probably weeks before the trial. I mean, I say EVA trial, not literally, but essentially the EVA trial. We get into the phone and we find significant evidence of child pornopography.
Oh.
We find evidence of other victims. As mentioned, the one victim who he was soliciting to victimize her own little prepubescent sister. All of that was on the phone. So naturally, we were prepared for trial, but then it turned into what's called a stipulated waiver trial, where the evidence was so overwhelming. He stipulated to all of the evidence and just hoped to challenge like this search of his home and the search of the evidence in the hopes that maybe, some constitutional challenge would succeed on appeal. So he was convicted following this stipulated waiver trial, and up until recently, I think got one of the worst sentences you could get in Pennsylvania. 494.5 years to, I forget, 500.
Yeah.
What's double of that? 500 and...
It may have even gone into close to 1,000.
I mean, sorry, 900. Yeah, it was just shy of 1,000.
Yeah, just shy of 1,000.
Yeah, so, and every single victim was present at sentencing and provided impact statements that just, it was hard. It was hard as a professional to keep your professional demeanor when hearing about the victimization.
Oh my God! And the harm that he caused.
The one little girl,
Permanency.
4 years old.
4 years old.
And
Jeez.
beautiful, a talented young artist, bright beyond your wildest imagination, had a tough childhood. Was 18 by the time we identified her, but 4 years old. Her sister was also victimized, and a cousin was victimized. So he just decimated families.
And sometimes the victims blame themselves. They feel guilty. They don't want to talk about it. It's embarrassing. But these are things that need to reach the surface to prevent this from occurring even more and more. And the education that our listeners have and will continue to receive during a show like this today will hopefully thwart off some of the occurrences. It's not going to thwart off the disease. I don't even like to say disease. It sounds like, well, they need help.
Right.
But listen, there's common sense and humanity issues that they just don't have.
Yeah,
They're
and
barbaric and they don't care.
It's interesting. There have been constitutional challenges to Megan's Law, which is now SORNA. But the reason why they've survived is that there are experts. The experts on both sides universally agree that this affliction, if you are a pedophile, you will always struggle with, and I use the word struggle lightly, you will always have this predisposition.
Right.
It's not something with intense therapy. You will no longer have a deviant sexual attraction to small children.
Right,
you
right.
will always.
It'll
and
be
so
there.
we have to take external steps to protect the community. And again, I know we did a little deep dive into Walter Meyerle, but he's just one of countless cases. The Bucks County District Attorney's Office we were just talking about prosecuted a beekeeper who was
We were just talking about that?
Literally
Yeah.
just talking about it. And he was someone already convicted on Megan's Law and was advertising on township websites for beekeeping services. So people naturally think, these people are vetted, he can't be a threat, and come into someone's home or on their property when they have, an issue with, an infestation of bees, which obviously isn't safe. And he would use that to identify what families had children, what families had he preferred males, victims, young boys, and then lo and behold, groom and then carry out sexual crimes against those. And having been convicted before, still had the audacity to operate right under our noses.
That's the word.
The audacity, yeah. And I've seen it time and time again. Falls Township have one of, honestly, probably the second worst offender I have ever seen in my 24 years. Another case I prosecuted was a contractor Willie Thomas, who was rehabbing, homes, doing contractor work. He chronicled his sexual abuse of little girls in the most unimaginable way. He would chronicle on the underside of the drywall, like on the plywood.
Oh my God!
And
in the homes.
homes, and it took a contractor who was flipping a house and saw that evidence and reported it to Falls Township Police. Another outstanding detective at the time, Sergeant Chris Clark from Falls Township, who pieced together more evidence of this and more evidence of similar types of reports of this guy. Never actually a child coming forward. And obviously broke the case wide open, and a search of the home showed a house of horrors.
Oh my God.
He had hundreds and hundreds of little girls' underwear. He had child pornography beyond your,
wildest imagination.
Yeah, it was horrible. So it's just, they are among us.
Yeah, they are among us. And more to follow. We're going to take another quick break. How much time do we have when we're coming back? About 15 minutes? Good. So we have a lot more to share. This incident, so that people are aware, it's not just in one isolated area. It's everywhere. And we want to talk about preparing your children. And never, never, never leave them out of your sight. Be careful when they're not in your sight, when you're working, who are the babysitters? Who are the child care providers? It's all important to safeguard your children, because that's what's most important. We'll return after a few moments, and we'll have a lot more to share with you. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, Paul Mellon from Team Toyota. With the season finally changing, things in the car market are pretty much the same. You can wait for months to find a new car, or don't wait at all. With over 100 certified Toyotas in stock with low mileage and great warranties, you can drive one home today. Plus, get free maintenance and roadside assistance for 1 year. Or choose a budget-friendly used car that meets your financial and lifestyle needs. So start the season in your new used car at Team Toyota. Just visit teamtoyota.net.
WBCB is now on your FM dial at 107.3. Serving Bucks, Burlington, and Mercer counties since 1958, you can now listen to all of your BCB favorites crystal clear on 107.3 FM. A new age for WBCB on a new frequency, 107.3.
Hey, this is Jonesy. Kick off your Thursday and Friday evenings in style. Join me for an eclectic freeform mix of the hits and beyond. It's a happening, a musical journey. It's the Glenn Jones Radio Experience, right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM, Thursday and Friday, 5 to 6 p.m., directly following the legendary Jerry Blavitt. Radio, the way it ought to be.
Hi, Paul Mellon from Team Toyota. With the season finally changing, things in the car market are pretty much the same. You can wait for months to find a new car, or don't wait at all. With over 100 certified Toyotas in stock with low mileage and great warranties, you can drive one home today. Plus, get free maintenance and roadside assistance for 1 year. Or choose a budget-friendly used car that meets your financial and lifestyle needs. So start the season in your new used car at Team Toyota. Just visit teamtoyota.net.
Hey, welcome back, and thanks for listening in. It's so important that we convey all of these experiences that we want to stop. And Jennifer and I at break here, we were talking about, is it getting worse? We were asking that question, but it seems that it's not, hopefully not getting worse. It's just that we're able to arrest more people because of the smart work and the capabilities and resources that we have today that we didn't have before. That's what we're hoping. So if you see more incidents occurring, it's not as if these incidents haven't occurred before. They just haven't been brought to the surface. But our good investigators, our brilliant investigators, are cracking through, scratching through the surfaces much more effectively. If you have inquiries about an individual, please make sure that you know this number, jot it down, because it could happen tomorrow. It could happen next week. Who knows when it could occur? That you may have someone that you're not comfortable with. And it's not just your children. It could be your neighbor's children. It could be your families. It's so important to try and cooperate. We need your help with this type of concern. It's something that's not going away, unfortunately. But you can call the Megan's Law section of the Pennsylvania State Police, toll free. And Jen has some numbers for you as well, but jot these numbers down. They're important. 1-866-771-3170. That's 1-866-771-3170. That's the Megan's Law section of the Pennsylvania State Police. It's a toll-free number, and they're there for a reason, to wait for your call so that we can be more effective in preventing these horrible assaults on our children. Jen, I know you have a number as well, too.
I do. And we were talking before about you don't want to make an accusation that's unfounded.
Correct.
But if you have something that just doesn't seem right, you call Childline, and I'm going to provide that number. But before I do, I just want to emphasize that with Childline, you can call anonymously.
Yes.
And you need not assess the credibility of the information. Let the professionals do that. If it turns out it's something innocuous and there was some legitimate encounter with a student, with a child,
yes,
that's fine. The professionals will determine that, and there's no harm, no foul.
No, you're right.
If you don't report, though, and in fact there is a predator who's operating right under our noses, which we see often, that is the scary part. So anyway, Childline in Pennsylvania, toll-free number as well. And again, you can report anonymously, and that is 1-800-932-0313.
Give them that number again, Jen.
1-800 932-0313. And as you mentioned, Tom, it's not just our children. I mean, it takes a village. It's, we and I'm a mandated reporter. Our school teachers, anyone working with children in the school
Yes.
nurse, the janitor,
Yes.
everyone's a mandated reporter who works in that capacity with children. So we know well about Childline, but even if it's something you see that may seem unusual, and it's not just sexual abuse, it's physical as well, make the report.
Make the report.
Let
Call.
the professionals.
You'll feel better.
You will feel better, and you do not need to feel any guilt in the event that your information may not add up to something nefarious, that it may be something legitimate. That's okay.
Yes.
That's why it's there, to let the professionals do the work.
No question about it. The purpose of these shows are just what you're hearing now, educating you so that you'll find a way to keep your children and your family members, your neighbors, your everyone much safer, so that we can try and mitigate and decimate these assaults.
Yes.
Because they're real, demonic, barbaric, but they're also very, very smart. They're brilliant. They know how to manipulate and work the adults and the family members, and they see weaknesses, as Jennifer had pointed out. Any type of a weakness there, they'll dive in and get a little bit closer,
Yes.
so that they can continue to manipulate and really make matters worse for the community. You mentioned the 3 types of sexual predators. You got there's all different classifications and levels, correct?
Yes, with SORNA, there's 3 different levels. There's, depending on the tier, dictates the time of your registration. And again, that's post-conviction. And so, there is ways to look and see who in your community has been convicted. But just again, to emphasize that that should not completely define how you operate out in public. So, for example, if your child's playing a sport, be present. Get to know
Yes,
people.
that's
Yes,
important.
That's the
Baseball games and all,
yeah,
the
baseball,
sandlot sports.
basketball, soccer, and and that's why we talked about this being kind of a good time, and kids are outside,
Yep.
community pools, at the
Swimming.
park, swimming. Get to know who's in your child's life. The vast majority of people are great people who want to give back, help,
Yeah.
Educate children and teach children. But, I will say, sex offenders don't like the parents being involved, or if not a parent, the caregiver being involved. They're going to look for easy prey.
Yeah,
and the
of
easy
course.
prey is going to be, and again, this is not casting any blame on the families whose children have been victimized.
Right.
I mean, I have children and I work full time. And my husband, obviously, we both happen to be in a similar field. He's in law enforcement, so our poor children. There's been some heavy vetting.
There's plenty of preparation there for those children.
Yes.
God bless them.
And we've been fortunate to have wonderful, wonderful people in our child's lives, but we get to know them. But again, it could just be that a predator sees 2 parents working really hard, or 1 parent working really hard to keep, make ends meet, and they will find a way. But you want to take steps to protect yourself, and being present or aware or communicating even when you can't be is a deterrent. They'll move on. They will. They will. That's too risky.
It is too risky.
Yeah.
And we want to look at our children. Educate them as much as possible. We asked a question, or questions are posed. Well, when do you begin to tell children how to be careful? You hear my granddaughter, who's only 3 years old, and she knows about monsters and people that are creepy. Well, is it better to indoctrinate them with, information about if somebody's ever getting too close to you? The education period, the time when you first begin, when do you educate them?
As early as possible. And this is what I've done. And I get to watch these amazing professionals who I failed to mention earlier, are forensic interviewers who work at our Child Advocacy Center in Bucks County. And they're remarkable people. So we work as a team with the men and women in Child Protective Services, men and women in law enforcement, and our Child Advocacy Center when there is a concern about a child potentially being abused, or it's a precautionary interview, meaning we know there was a sex offender
Sure.
in that child's life. Was that child a victim?
Right.
So, but so I learned a lot, and I've had the benefit, maybe not with my oldest, but before my second child, of really watching and seeing how some of these conversations unfold. And so what I always say is, ever since my children were little, who can see your private parts? Only mommy and daddy. If there's an issue, a doctor, but the doctor only if mom and dad are. And then as they get older, you change your language.
Right.
You don't want to be, patronizing to your adolescent age child.
Exactly.
But with your little ones, you say, and only a doctor if mommy or daddy are in the room.
Or are in the room, exactly.
And I love my pediatric practice. That doctor never, ever, ever does anything if I'm not in the room.
Correct.
As far as a physical examination. And so you set the ground rules. No coach, no teacher, no neighbor. If there was an emergency, that neighbor knows how to get a hold of mommy and daddy, and mommy and daddy will figure out. So just starting, because you don't want to.
Boy, this is excellent information.
You don't want to terrorize your child and make them think, and have nightmares.
Right.
Yeah, and then have the adverse effect of not connecting and forming relationships, but just slowly but surely. And that the other thing, Tom, that I failed to mention earlier, is what these predators make the child believe when they're doing something sexual to them, that they're in this together and they're doing something that's bad
don't
together.
Tell anybody.
Don't tell anyone.
Oh,
and so
my
the
God.
child doesn't tell because the child thinks, oh, I did something bad too. And so that is the other part of the conversation, is that you will not get in trouble. You need to talk to mommy and daddy about no matter what. You will not get in trouble if, and then slowly as they get older, you kind of just gauge the conversation based on, their awareness. But you don't want to scare a 3 or 4 year old thinking there's, that their teacher's going to touch them inappropriately.
Yes, exactly. But at least if they have those outward signs that may make them feel, hey, geez, mommy and daddy told me that I should be watching out for this. Report it. Report it. Let your mom, let mom and dad know that this is what's happening.
Right.
My God, it's so important. The education with our children and everyone. And it's true with doctors. If there's a doctor that is doing something, because there are doctors out there that are violators, let's face it.
Look at the gymnastics. I mean, the Olympic athletes and national team athletes being victimized right under everybody's nose.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's like kind of almost shocking.
It's
like
scary.
We talked about the audacity. It's scary because how brazen. But guess what? How many years did he get away with it?
That's the key.
So, and it takes then, and
someone to stand up.
And it doesn't, I'm not suggesting those that aren't strong, because everyone handles their victimization differently. But if the dialogue is there and the trust is there with a parent or caregiver and that foundation, talk to me if anything is concerning or you think is unusual, that's going to increase the likelihood of a disclosure.
No question. So any other good numbers to let our listeners know? I mean, obviously we mentioned the Megan's Law section of the state police.
Not so much numbers, but there is wonderful programs in our schools. Our network of victim assistance, which we call NOVA, an acronym for and that's a Bucks County Victim Assistance Agency. They'll come out to schools and give talks to students, and it's no longer the stranger danger, but talks about body safety and things along that. That talks that help remind children what's wrong and what's appropriate, what's inappropriate and what's appropriate.
Right.
And oftentimes we'll have disclosures following those specific presentations in the schools. That often prompts a disclosure of a child who's being victimized. Yeah. So. Can
you believe the hour has already arrived?
I cannot.
It's incredible how fast the time flies by when we're covering such intimate and important information for all of our parents to understand. Educate. Make sure that you always have your eye on your children.
Yeah.
And if you have someone else that's attending the needs of your children, of any of your children, make sure you understand and know a lot about that individual.
Yes.
And keep educating your children too. Look for the outward signs. If there's, if something's wrong, you'll be able to detect it as well.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden your child's withdrawn
Behavior.
or sexualized behavior with the smaller children, excellent point, Tom.
Yeah. Well, that's the end of our show today. And Jen, I want to thank you once again for always being here to help, all the listeners in Bucks County and all of our citizens and visitors as well. We're happy to do this show on a monthly basis. We couldn't do it without Jen. And Jen is just very happy to come in here and share her time, her professional expertise to inform you of all the things that are important for you to know. On behalf of Paul Muller at Team Toyota here, myself, Tom Mellon, I'm your host here with Justice for All, along with Jennifer Schorn.
Thank you.
And Matt Weintraub, who's
Best.
He is the best.
Yes.
We love him as well. Be safe, stay well. Don't text while you drive. Jerry, I'm coming home to walk the dog. Matt always says, I used to say that at the end of every show. Coming home to walk the dog, Jerry.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And be safe as always, and God bless America.